Hey everyone, on today's stimulus update, we're talking all about what Berkshire Hathaway did over the weekend, aka what did Warren Buffett do over the weekend, and then also what is going on with a potential PPP round 3, even though we're still currently only halfway through really round 2. I'm Logan.
I'm Edin.
And Edin, walk us through what happened with what Warren Buffett came out and said and did this weekend.
Yeah, so just to give some context to that, every year most major companies have an annual shareholder meeting. And for Berkshire, as big as they are and as popular as Warren Buffett is, they essentially hold a weekend edition of their annual gathering. And so that was this weekend. I think it's wrapped up now. And essentially what Warren Buffett talked about was how this current situation is impacting the economy, how it's impacting some of the holdings that Berkshire has, and then ultimately his viewpoint on what's going to happen next.
So he exited all of his airline positions, meaning he sold all airline stock.
That's the big
What does that
headline.
mean? And what did he say about that?
His biggest thing with that is, and what we got to think about is he's an investor and he's what's called a fiduciary. He's responsible for whenever you buy shares of Berkshire, him and the management team and whoever's responsible for investing, they have a duty to invest in what has the best opportunities for their shareholders. So it's a two-sided thing. On one hand, they're saying the airline stocks are not the best investment right now. There's a number of reasons for that. One, having planes and having people is very expensive, right? So buying new planes, you always have to buy the newest, latest, and greatest. Last year, we had a lot of issue with Boeing planes.
Yeah, I remember that.
So we have that. They're trying to upgrade that. Boeing's passing that cost on to the airlines. Then on the labor side, most airlines have their employees are part of a labor union. So you can't easily let go of people. They're stuck in a contract, and they've already gotten a bailout as part of this, and all the airlines have promised that they're going to keep everybody employed until September. So I think it's more from a unknown situation. We don't know when this is going to be over. We don't know what travel's going to look like. What's demand going to look like? What is government regulation going to look like, right? So they took all this money, and if they're going to get heavily regulated, is it going to be harder for them to make money? So that's the big story with the airlines.
And with that, I mean, that's all. I mean, it's uncertainty, which freaks everybody out. But I know he did come out and talk about like the future of America. Like he's still very bullish on the future. I mean, America, in his words, will always win. And it sounds like he's pretty optimistic about the upcoming entrepreneurs and kind of opportunities that are going to come from all of this.
Yeah, so I mean, Buffett's in his 80s, I think now, so he's been around forever. He's seen every sort of economy. He's seen every sort of pandemic, recession that you can possibly see. And from that experience, what he's gathered is that ultimately in America, we always figure out how to come back. We always figure out how to change things, how to improve, how to innovate. And that was his big message towards the end is, yeah, there's always going to be these shocks. There's always going to be these adjustments. But if we continue to believe that, entrepreneurship is the way to a better future and we continue to innovate, then we're going to do that. And there's no place like America to do it. And so we are going to bounce back. There's a lot of positives that have come out of this. But it's ultimately up to all of us to also take the steps to move forward.
And with that, I mean, one of the other ideas is that there may potentially, and I know we're only halfway through PPP 3.5, aka round 2 of everything, but there may also be a third round of everything. That's starting to get some chatter, because I know what they came out and said was so far they've already funded about 175 billion of PPP 3.5, and the average loan amount is actually $79,000. So the first round was what, Edin? It was like 227 grand, right?
Yeah, depending on whose numbers you use. In the first round, the average loan size was, let's just say, over $200,000, whether it's
Right.
210, 220, whatever. So that means your average monthly payroll was in the neighborhood of $85,000 to $90,000 a month. So you had annual payrolls of $1 million. Those are not your typical small businesses as you think of. And so we've had a lot of feedback and a lot of criticism since the first round about how the real small businesses that need this money got shut out in the first round. So now we had the second round, and what we're seeing is there has been a lot more intervention behind the scenes by the Small Business Administration and the Treasury Department to force more loans and more money to the smaller businesses. And I think that's why you're seeing that those averages are coming down, because $80,000 in PPP money now means about $35,000 in average monthly payroll, which again, 35 to 95, those are big differences. So you're seeing that happening a lot more, and we're about 2/3 of the way through funding that program. But what I've seen at the end of last week is that the big banks have started funding smaller companies. So I think you're going to see an acceleration throughout this week in that remaining 120, 130 billion that's left out there.
And a lot of this is also dependent on what is going on with everything else in the world, right? We've got Gilead's drug of remdesivir, which had a lot of promising results last week, which if that thing, which I know Gilead's saying they're going to donate a lot of it, if that actually comes forward and has a lot of promise that this could solve the issue much faster, then there may not even be a need to be a round 3 of everything. But again, a lot of this uncertainty is kind of why Buffett and Berkshire, exited everything, is because there is that uncertainty and nobody really quite knows. But so far, the government hasn't put a stop on anything and hasn't said, we're not, this is it, this is the last round. They're kind of keeping their options open. So that way, if for some reason this remdesivir doesn't work out or something else happens and there needs to be a round 3, now we open this all back up, which is, do we now fund people that still haven't gotten any money yet? Or do we start to go back to the companies that maybe got funded round 1 and maybe they're already, by the time this thing goes through, maybe we're already getting close to that 8-week window where they've already spent all the money and now they need more to stay afloat. So I'd be curious to see if they just say, well, you already got your first round, we're only doing people that have yet to get it, or if they allow some of those people that got it first round, depending on when the second round, depending on if there is a third round, if they're able to dip back in. So a lot of unknowns, but a lot of things to think about.
Yeah, again, I think the consistent theme has been that the government has been involved, that they're leaving the door open for more options for different types of funding. So
Right.
they're realizing it's not a one-size-fits-all. And again, I'd be curious to see what happens with the third round. The PPP loan option, I think, they've done it. We've talked about this on the tax side. It's a sneaky way where it's not going to cost them the full amount. They're going to get some back through tax dollars. Where
They being the government.
Correct, the government.
Right.
Where if they just say, you know what, forget it, we're just going to keep funding unemployment, those are going to be a lot harder to get back in terms of tax dollars. So I think it's a calculated move on their part too, in terms of who do we help, how do we help, and to what extent. And I think we're going to see some variation of another, whether you want to call it bailout or loan program, somewhere across the spectrum. And again, there's a lot of chatter about individual stimulus packages as well as these business stimulus packages. So it's really a question of how long does this drag out.
Yeah, so it's just one of those times that there is, both sides of our bipartisan government are now proposing different bills and different acts. So it's kind of interesting to see both groups to actually come together to try to figure out different ways to make this work instead of being, just one-sided, which is how it was for a while. So I think everybody's starting to get pretty creative on all this stuff, and hopefully, these solutions to these problems they are a little bit, they take shape a little bit faster. So there may not even need to be a round 3, but again, only time will tell. And it seems like with everything going on, every week is a whole new story for everything. So it's kind of hard to like forecast too far out.
That's why you got to keep coming back, watching our videos, because we're going to give you the latest and greatest news on what's going on.
All right, everyone, thank you very much. And if you want to ensure that you keep coming back to this stuff, make sure you are subscribed to everything so that way you don't miss anything. Thank you.